Hello everyone, Republic Jim here. Today, as you can see from the video title, I wanted to talk about my budget Arctic bedding system. So, what is an Arctic bedding system? I'm glad you asked. It was developed by Scandinavians. I don't know exactly who to credit for it, but in that area where there's a lot of snow and doing expeditions, pulling a sled is fairly popular. They call it a pulk, but some bright person came up with the idea of a quick deploy bedding system for extremely cold weather. The idea is that when you're pulling a sled and the conditions are probably pretty poor and cold, you get to camp, you don't want to spend a lot of time setting up and having to get everything out and inflate your sleeping pad, and you really don't want your sleeping bag compressed all day, because then it takes a while to loft up and provide more insulation. So if you can leave it all unrolled and ready, then it's just that much more comfortable when you do get in it. And just being able to set it up really quickly just saves a lot of hassle when you make camp. So I came across that idea when I was just looking at different sled and pulk information on the internet, and discovered this whole concept of Arctic bedding. Started looking into the gear to do that. And of course, everybody that does it tends to have the high-end stuff and the ultra fancy, ultra lightweight down sleeping bags that cost hundreds of dollars, and the well-insulated sleeping pads that are a couple $100. And then they make special bags for enclosing the whole system, waterproof bags for the outer. And of course, those are $100 to $200 depending on what you get and what features. And none of that is in my budget, and for the little amount of outdoor camping that I do, I couldn't justify spending that even if I had it. It's just not worth it to me. But I was intrigued by the idea and wanted to put something together for my own campouts when I do. And just this last weekend, I was able to get out in the snow with my sled and do that. And so I tested my new system and was really pleased with the results. So wanted to share that. And some of these items I already had, and then the one key item I just did pick up recently, but I'll just walk you through it here and start with the real basic. This is just your typical 5-foot by 7-foot emergency tarp, which I always carry in my pack out and about. This, depending on which brand you get, they're around $20. This isn't even really necessary. I just kind of like to have something to sandwich around the sleeping bag and pad, and give something to strap it all together, and provides a little bit more insulation, with the reflective surface. It kind of retains some of that radiant warmth inside. And so, I could get rid of it, especially in warmer temperatures, but it's inexpensive and lightweight and just an easy thing to add to the system. So start with that. Then I have my sleeping pad, which I did a basic overview of recently, relatively recently. I'll put a link to that video in the description down below. But this is an oversized inflatable sleeping pad, not insulated, so certainly not recommended for laying just directly on the ground. But It's about 6.5 feet long by around 27 inches wide, and depending on where you measure on the thickness, about 3 to 4 inches when it's fully inflated. And it has this pillow built in, and as part of this system, it works really well. This cost me $40. So again, budget friendly there, you know, and pretty simple. Something I already had for my regular gear. I carry it normally rolled up in its bag on my SAR pack, but for this system, I just inflate it ahead of time and put it in with everything else. This monster is my guide gear fleece lined sleeping bag, which I just did an overview, sort of review of, and I will also put a link to that in the description. You know, this is a very large sleeping bag. It's over 7 feet long, so when it's fully extended all the way up to the top of this hood part, it actually extends past the edge of that emergency tarp, but this part gets folded over when I have it in the system there. And yeah, it's heavy. It's like 11 pounds for this thing, but when I'm throwing it all together in my Arctic bedding system and going on top of the sled, I'm not as concerned about that weight. So, and when it's all laid out and has a chance to you know, let the insulation expand and everything, then it's very warm right off the bat when I get in, and just overall a great addition to the system. And then finally, as I said, the dedicated bags, you know, purpose-built bags for the Arctic bedding systems are not inexpensive, and for something I rarely do, just not worthwhile to me, and especially since most of them are made in Europe and have to get it shipped and such. But I've been kind of trying to figure out what I could use for that purpose, because you know, anybody that watches this channel much knows that I like to find things that were designed for something else that will fit the purpose that I need. And I just, when I was talking with a friend, he mentioned that he had a genuine unused body bag. There had been several of them that years ago had been in storage for quite a while and ended up being surplus because they're old and outdated for whatever reason. I don't know how that would matter when you're talking about something to put a body in. But regardless, he brought it in for me to take a look at, and I realized it was exactly what I was looking for, and the price was free. So that was awesome. It's very heavy material. It's got this sort of plasticky, rubbery type fabric. I don't know exactly what it is, but held up quite well to snow and rain and everything on my overnight outing. And it has straps, reinforcement points all over the place, and has carrying handles and good solid metal zippers and everything. And I think this was designed so that pretty much any body would fit in it. The thing's about 7.5 feet long, so it even contains my massive sleeping bag. And you know, the emergency tarp fully extended and everything. And it's also about 3 feet wide, so it's just very impressive on the sizing. I can zip the thing wide open, put all my stuff in, and yeah, I put the tarp down, put the sleeping pad down, lay out the sleeping bag. I do fold the top, you know, the hood part on the bag over, and then I have a couple of really long straps that I wrap around all of those items just to kind of secure it all together inside the body bag, and then zip the body bag closed, and you know, it's all contained and set up and ready to go, easy to maneuver, lots of handles, good waterproof outer, so it's just worked out ideal for that. So anyway, so with the roughly $80 for the sleeping bag, which I think is an incredible bargain, as I mentioned in the dedicated video about that. You know, you got 80 for that, around 20 for the emergency tarp, and 40 for the sleeping pad. So, and then you know, the free body bag. So I'm at about $140 for the entire system. Now, granted, I don't know where the average person would get their hands on body bags, especially for free, but just FYI, if you're looking for something that is perfect for this sleeping system, you know, check around and see. You never know if maybe a coroner's office or somebody has old ones to get rid of. Obviously, unused ones are preferable there, but you know, there's probably other bags around that for different purposes that would work well and not be quite as morbid, but from my perspective, free is a great price, and if it works perfect for what I need, then so much the better. And so anyway, that's just an overview of that. Now I'll go ahead and set it all up and just give you a quick look at what it looks like when it's ready to take out into the field. All right, so here's my Arctic bedding system, all fully enclosed in the body bag. As you can see, it has the convenient handles and it maintains its shape relatively well. It's a little floppy. And I'll put a picture on the screen here of the system strapped on top of my big utility sled, which, by the way, relatively soon I will also be doing a video about that utility sled and modifications and alternative uses. But that will be coming out sometime soon. Anyway, getting back to this, you can see from the picture that it's basically the full width of the sled and makes for a pretty good waterproof cover over it. I still tarp the items in the sled, but having this on top really makes for a good cover over everything. And as you saw, when you unstrap it and have it loose like this, it is easy to just stand off to the side or lay down and just throw wherever until you're ready. And basically the idea is you get to camp and unstrap it, you set up whatever you need to, you get your bed ready, whether that's in a tent or on, you know, just on the floor of the tent or on a folding cot or a makeshift bed out of branches or what have you. You know, you want to get your bedding deployed quickly and get in, set that thing down. Unzip it. It's easier if you have more space to work, but fold that back got my straps here. I just undo and toss out of the way. Open up the tarp a little bit. And just like that, take off one's boots. And right there is a pretty warm sleeping system. And now, of course, if one wants to, they can even fold this back up over, zip up the bottom or whatever. But, you know, really, if I was at all concerned about staying warm, this thing is big enough that I could easily put a bivy bag inside, or you know, or my poncho and liner that I carry on my pack, or even just a lighter summer or three-season type sleeping bag would go inside this one with no problem at all. So even though I've only done this in temperatures a little below 20 degrees so far, I have no doubt that I could make it comfortable quite a bit colder if I was really concerned about it. But honestly, just this setup here, I would be pretty comfortable taking out on expeditions down around 0, and figure that I would still be able to stay fairly comfortable overnight as long as I was not directly on the ground. Even with the sleeping pad, you know, since it's not insulated, it needs to be raised up off the ground in some way to prevent that cold transfer from the ground. But as long as I was able to do that, I would have no concerns about, you know, around 0 degree weather. If I was doing any real extreme cold, I would most likely just plan on using my whoopee inside, and probably would at that point pull this closed a little more and zip it up over at least up to like knee level or something. But anyway, that's the basic idea, and I'm thankful to the Scandinavians for inventing it, and that I stumbled across it on the internet, and hopefully I'll have more opportunities in the future to make use of this system. But right now I need to get out of there because I'm getting too hot. But at any rate, that's the whole system in a nutshell. As I said, it's way cheaper than doing the, you know, all the purpose-built stuff. And you know, I'm glad that it all came together, and hope this has been useful information to somebody, or entertaining, or whatever. And I'd love to hear comments or questions down below. This has been Republic Jim. I'll talk to you later.